Hello, everyone over at TasPop. My name is Everin, and today I am joined by the wonderful Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, so excited to be here. As you just said, my name is Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. I am a principal game designer on Magic the Gathering, so I design what a lot of the cards do. I also get to travel all around, talk about the game, be a face for the game, which is a lot of fun. I've been working at Wizards for about 15 years and absolutely love it. Every day I go in and I'm stoked to be there.
Honestly, it sounds like an absolute dream job. So with that said, I actually have your first question for today, if that's okay. Now it's a bit of a tricky one, but what's your favorite Pokemon?
Oh, I'm always a red and blue kind of guy, so Bulbasaur is my boy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a Poliwhirl fan myself, so I have mad respect for the original games. Now, with that out of the way, we can get rid of the super serious questions and we start you off with something fun. So, what's the most time consuming part of the design process when it comes to cards?
Yes, the answer is all of it. I'll kind of back up and talk a bit about how we make magic sets. So magic sets take a really long time to make. They take years and years and years because it takes a lot of time and iteration and play testing and just going back and forth and tweaking stuff. It takes just a very long time to create. And each step of the process is slow and requires a lot of folks to weigh in, and a lot of work has to go into preparing each step of the process. So, for any given set, we'll make thousands of cards. I'm not even exaggerating. And, tons of mechanics, 100 plus mechanics in some cases for some sets. So we try lots of stuff out to figure out what's working and what's not working. And it all takes its own time in its own way, and kind of how fast things go depending on what kind of set lead you are. I do think for a lot of people, the things that take the longest is actually just updating the card file, right? We have a lot of meetings where we talk about what we want to do, and that's all great. But actually going in, looking at your entire list of cards, and dealing with the changes can take forever. Like, I will come in some days and be like, great, I've got no meetings today. I got all my time to work on my set. I'm going to knock out all the changes I need to make. And then by the end of the day, I'll be like, well, I got through white common and white uncommon, because when you make one change to a card set, all these cascading changes start happening. Okay, well, I want to add flying onto this card in white, which means I need to take it off this other card. Oh, now this card is too similar to something else. And like the cascading changes are massive. And just trying to wrangle all that and seeing how it all locks together takes the most amount of time, I would say. Um, but the whole process is just really long, but fortunately also really fun.
So, on that note, you are previously being a pro player for Magic. Do you think that that plays a role in that sort of intricacy of, I guess, designing it? I mean, the way you've described it, it almost feels like I'm designing a deck in a cube.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say cube because I always like to say that designing a cube is a good approximation for what it's like to design a magic set. A similar amount of scrutiny goes into it. The only difference is you work with the cards that already exist, and I can make new cards that kind of fill some of those gaps. But a lot of the same premises fill right in there. Um, yes, I absolutely do. Coming in with a pro background really gives me a leg up on like a lot of card analysis and figuring out if a card's going to be good and what a set needs, all that kind of stuff. Um, and it's quite interesting because I came in as a pro player and then over time have become kind of one of the leads of Commander, helping me run that
Mm.
format. And I'm in a very unique situation that few other folks can occupy where I can kind of walk between worlds, right? I know a lot about the Commander world and how that works and what, good design practices are there. But I also know a lot about competitive play and what makes a card strong and how to design for high-powered limited formats. And that unique blend of skills lets me kind of see both when I'm working on a set pretty well. I'm not saying I'm the strongest at it. Like I'm still going to be weaker than our dedicated play design team, but it lets me get cards more in the right band so that I can walk over there and we can speak the same language and the card set is already close to what we need. And that I think has gone a long way for the sets that I've worked on.
Hell yeah. I mean, I was actually looking at a interview you did with a professor that was posted about, I think, 3 months ago, where you mentioned not even really, I guess, being interested in Commander when it first kind of started kicking off. So it's really cool to see that you've essentially taken the role of such a monumental part of Magic the Gathering. With that said, I mean, you
Yeah,
did. Pardon me. I was just gonna say, to an extent, though, you were one of the lead people when creating moderns. So I feel like you've had such an impact on this game. It's pretty incredible, honestly.
Yeah, it's so wild to say that I've been here 15 years now. Like it feels like yesterday and also forever. And you know, when you're around that long, I guess you start to make big impacts on things. So I feel very fortunate to be able to do all that I've done, and I look forward to some of the cool stuff I'm going to be rolling out in the next few years.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. Now, with that said, you did mention something which I was going to segue later, but I feel like this actually works now. And I feel like it's a tradition with people who interview you, but you were mentioning how long it actually takes to create a set beforehand. You said that it takes multiple years. So I was actually looking through my game collection the other day, and I was looking through my copy of Heart Gold, and I found a booster pack for Lord of the Rings. And I guess my question to you is how long was that in the works before it came out? I mean, that was the set that I got introduced to, or at least was exposed to initially. Um, but to me, like that seems like something that would have taken, half a decade to actually plan and actually kind of put out there.
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings, and you know, I didn't work as much on that set, so and it was the first thing we were doing like it, really, right? So my memory's a little hazy, but I think we started on it in 2019, is what I remember with Lord of the Rings.
And then that was
It's possible that
2023
some of the talks started
release.
in 2018. It released in 2023, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's possible that maybe we started some of the negotiations in 2018, but yeah, 2019 is where kind of that exploration started in earnest. So it took me about plus years to go from those initial ideas to coming out, and especially when working on a Universes Beyond set, there's just a lot. It takes a little bit longer, often a lot longer, because you want to do right by the property that you're working with. You want to make sure that the property owner can like look through everything and give any feedback, and you know, show all the art to them, and all that kind of stuff. It just takes a lot longer to set up, and we start those way in advance. So you know, it's 2026 right now, and we're already talking about, you know, potential stuff through the end of the decade. So you know, there is a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Um, but it takes a long time to get there, and it's really meticulous work, and you have to be really careful with it, because when you're working on magic, and just, you know, like a in-world magic set, you're just being a steward of magic, which is a huge responsibility, and I don't want to understate that at all. But when you're working with another property, you're not only being a steward of magic, you're also trying to be a good faith representative of that property, right? When I was working on Final Fantasy, I had to not only try and be a good magic designer and embody our best principles, but also embody the best principles of Final Fantasy and what that group really cares about, and what Square Enix cares about. And so it's a lot of extra weight on you, but the results can be really amazing, and I'm so proud of the work I did on Final Fantasy.
Oh, it was an incredible set. I remember getting a couple packs from it, and I remember showing a friend of mine, and it's actually part of the reason why they got into the game. Shivers, I forget which structure deck they got, but the moment they found out that Final Fantasy was a part of it, they just kind of leapt into the game and really haven't looked back, which I think is incredible. It's
That's all.
a really good bridge to get into the community, I feel. Um, with that said, there is another question that kind of spans off from this. So forgive me for reading my notes here. I just want to make sure I say it correctly. With the discussion around universes beyond being just ever present, do you see a way of making the concept more palatable as players note feeling things like character fatigue? Otherwise, what's your message to players who are being pushed away?
Can you define character fatigue to me?
Okay, I've actually got a good example. So the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set has, I think, 10 cards that feature Leonardo in them, 8 that include Raphael, and then 5 that include Donatello, and then an additional 5 or so that include Mikey, if I remember. And while actually looking for questions, because we posted a big questionnaire, I got a lot of really good things to ask. I actually had someone bring up more than once, just feeling like there are a lot of the same characters, and when you might be playing at a pre-release or you might be playing with friends, in a say limited format, there's a not unlikely chance you might pull say 5 or 6 cards that all have the same name. And I guess that's kind of what I mean by character fatigue, seeing the same people more than once.
Yeah, I think that the character fatigue thing matters a lot with the property you're working with. You know, um, for each property, like the most iconic characters, it makes sense to do a couple of versions of, because you want to be able to have them show up in limited and a booster pack enough for like just someone who just buys a handful of packs to be able to find that card. And also you want to have this awesome mythic rare version that is like the pinnacle you want to search for. So I think Final Fantasy is a good example of how we did this in a way where I was really happy with it as lead of Final Fantasy, where in the main set no character is repeated. In the entire main set, you will not find a duplicate character. Now the bonus sheet might have a duplicate character, so it is theoretically possible you could end up with like say a Cloud on the bonus sheet and a Cloud in the main set. But the main set is all bespoke. Then in the commander decks, there's more versions of the characters that are commander sized. But I think that really helped keep the camera feeling like you're seeing different things all the time. And yes, while characters like Ishtola and Cloud did get multiple versions, of course, the wide majority of it was trying to do different things. A good example is with the Final Fantasy Commander decks. When we zoomed in on those games, for example, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, we wanted to, once we got past the face characters, we wanted to mostly make things that didn't have room in the main set. And I actually negotiated a lot with the Commander deck lead, Daniel Holt, on okay, you take this character and I'll take this character, and we can kind of like make sure that they're all ending up in the right places. So it let us go deeper on those games and not hit the same characters a bunch of times. And I totally hear that's the thing we got to be careful about because it does begin to feel like the same character over and over, and you can't really remember which one is which. So yeah, we need to be cautious of that for sure. And I also think that some properties do that better than others. When a property is very like shallow on how many just different things there are, or how many well-known things there are, it becomes a lot more challenging. With Final Fantasy, of course, I had the amazing breadth of like, wow, there's 16 different mainline games and so much content to choose from. So it's going to depend property to property. But I definitely like when we were able to show off a lot of different characters.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So talking about the palatability of these sets, I know that it is a bit of discourse. Like, people are in some degree being driven away. I don't think that it's actually something that is a direct cause of Universes Beyond. At the end of the day, sometimes a game grows and it doesn't grow with you. It doesn't mean it doesn't grow with someone else, you know? Um, what do you say to people who are being driven away, I guess? Whether intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah, we are still coming out with all kinds of awesome Magic and World sets. Those are not going anywhere. We definitely heard the feedback of people feeling like there's a lot of sets, a lot of universes beyond, so we're taking that into account going forward. But the thing I think is also worth saying as the flip side of that is Magic is also bringing in new people at a really high pace. Like Magic is growing and growing and growing so much right now, and a lot of it is because of Universes Beyond. And a lot of those folks come in for Universe Beyond. I think there's this maybe impression that a lot of them are tourists. Like they come on in for, oh, I like Final Fantasy. I'll come on in and play that, then leave. That's not. I mean, I'm not saying there are no people like that. I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
But a lot of the folks that come on in and try a Universe Beyond set are like, oh, this Magic game is actually awesome, and they stick around and play, and they're part of everything. And we see Magic just growing and growing and growing. So look, I hear people who are frustrated by it. I think we want to try and find ways to balance that, and like keeping to come out with awesome Magic World sets is so important to me. But at the same time, it's hard to deny that this is bringing a lot of folks into the game. There's a lot of enjoyment around it, and I think the right thing to do is going forward, like take a close eye at which properties we're working with to make sure that they're good tonal fits for Magic and that people feel like they fit the game they're kind of signing up for. I think one of the reasons why Final Fantasy worked so well was because it really does feel like it's Magic. Like everyone's like it was. Not to toot my own horn. I'm not trying to do that, but it was pretty
Toot away.
universally
It's
praised.
okay.
And I think a lot of people really felt like it aligned well with what Magic was. And I think that
Mm.
that game properties and things like that, high fantasy, etc., are really good fits for Magic. And I'm not saying that we can't do other things or other things are off the table. Certainly not at all. But trying to lean more in that direction, I think, helps it feel a little more like Magic. Because with something like Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example, there were plenty of comments of like, if I didn't know the property at all, this would just feel like a Magic world. And I think that's pretty cool. So I think we're taking a lot of learning lessons from our initial Universe Beyond forays, and we'll have to see what comes next. But yeah, I mean, while I certainly am aware there will be some people that disengage or could even leave the game altogether, I think it's important to note that like a lot of people are coming in, and I don't think they're just leaving. I think they're staying and becoming a part of Magic forever.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a fun game. People are coming in because there's an IP they recognize and staying because it's genuinely quite interesting to learn and in some cases master. And I know for a fact, like, there's a local gaming shop in Launceston called Scenic Isle, and whether it's a result of Universes Beyond or not, I feel like every time I'm there for Commander Night, every time I walk past, there's no free seats. It is an incredible shop that is a victim of its own success in that it is just more popular than ever, you know? And I feel like, I don't know, drawing in more players has really been a massive part of that, you know? Now, bit of a conversational topic change because I feel like I've asked as many questions as I can about Universes Beyond. Now you've mentioned that you've been with Wizards of the Coast for was it 15 years? Is that correct?
15 years this year.
Yeah, no. So for anyone listening, Gavin's first set was Return to Ravnica, if I've got that correct. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the first set that I worked on. I didn't lead the set, but I was on the team.
Mm. So working on that set, I guess the question just comes in the form of, do you have any regrets working on it? Are there any cards that you just wish you didn't do? Any decisions you didn't push for? That sort of thing.
Yeah, when you come into Wizards and you're put on your first set, it's a very overwhelming experience because you're trying to take in a lot of things all at the same time. And I was the first set actually, the first set I was on a team for was Gate Crash, the set after Return to Ravnica. So Return to Ravnica, I only had a very little ability to even influence at all. Um, but I was mostly really happy with how that set turned out. I think we made a lot of really cool cards that people really enjoyed. Maybe I would have gone back and if I could go and do it again, I might have given some feedback on Cyclonic Rift. Just we didn't really know what was going to happen at the time with how much Commander was going to grow, and each opponent turned out to be a pretty big deal on that card. But the set I think is like a pretty awesome Magic set, and I'm really happy with how Return to Ravnica came out. Working on Gate Crash, if I were to go to the first set I was ever on the team for, though, I definitely do have some things. Gate Crash, on the other hand, had a lot of great stuff going on, but the limited format ended up being not the strongest, and it is somewhat, in some small part, my fault because I drafted a lot of Dimir, and I kept making suggestions for like cards to buff and nerf, and Dimir ended up way too weak. It was by far the weakest of the 5 guilds in draft. And I think a lot of that was because my suggestions might have gone a little bit astray. And so I would have definitely gone back and I think suggested that better because the limited balance did not end up the strongest. Some of the guilds were just way better than the others. It was a very aggressive format, and you couldn't really draft one of the five color combinations. So that's something I would go back and change for sure.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, Boros was a bit of a menace in that, wasn't it? Was
Yeah,
that
Boros and
correct?
Orzhov
Mm.
were, I think, generally regarded as the best 2 combinations. And then you could also get the like Simic Gruul team up deck, which was pretty solid with Evolve leading the charge there. And then Dimir was kind of on an island by itself. It was not very strong.
No, absolutely. Well, honestly, it's really interesting just to see that there are any regrets, I guess, that early on into your career. Were the decisions you made, like, I guess it's a bit of a strange question to ask, but was it kind of odd seeing that your decisions had so much weight that early on?
Yeah, I mean, it really takes a team to make these things. And while a lead is the one making the final calls, everyone is on the team to like provide their expertise and opinions. And it's very cool knowing that you get to make an impact even when you're relatively new, and also a bit daunting. But that's how you learn. And keep in mind that like every set is made by uh, the folks on the design team, which is ultimately a small group of people in the grand scheme of things, and they're all just humans coming into work and making cards and chatting about stuff. And I think one of the beautiful things about Magic is like it does have that human feel of it's designed by a bunch of people sometimes, right? And like you look at stuff and you're like, huh, why is it that way? And sometimes the answer is just like, well, someone was a little bit off in their estimation, or the person working on that wasn't, missed that, or whatever the case might be. We're also a lot better about the stuff 15 years later than we were back then, admittedly too. But that's kind of how I see it.
I think it's been described previously that you can really see the fingerprints of each artist on their card, or sorry, each designer on their card, even. If you don't mind me asking, what would your fingerprint look like, I guess? What sort of cards do you generally try to push for?
That's a good question. I mean, I am a big fan of well, there's a lot of classic cards I'm a big fan of, but one kind of card that I really like, and usually someone will look at it and be like, "That's a very Gavin design," is any kind of little mini game card where you play a mini game inside of the game. The classic example would be Fact or Fiction, right, where you flip over 5 cards and you have like this little mini game you have to try and solve inside the game. I love these kind of cards. I love these little mini activities you get to play. They can be very hit or miss. Not everyone likes them. Some of them end up just being too wordy, and that ends up being the death knell a lot of the time. Is they're very wordy. But I still love making them and trying to find spots for them. So that's a trademark thing I often do. But um, every designer has their little flourishes. Magic is for all kinds of different types. And one of the things I love about it is different people like different things. And sometimes you got to fight up against those Eldrazi. And I'm sorry.
I mean, completely fair, completely fair. I'm not really one to talk. I love playing precons, and I feel like my friends are a bit sick of it at this point. Now, moving on, I do have another question. So, are there any cards that you thought would be popular in your time designing that just never really took off? Maybe you thought they were going to be powerful, popular, or even just like a niche little pick that would be included in a deck, but they just kind of didn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of cards you make, and when you're making cards, you like kind of have an idea of what they could or couldn't do, and you kind of bet on the percentage of the likelihood they're gonna hit, right? Because you never be sure. So you're like, we kind of use metrics of like, oh, this is like 80% to be highly played, or this is 40% to be highly played, what all that kind of stuff. Um, there were a couple cards in Battle Bond, which I led design, that I thought would end up being a little more popular than they were. One card that I was really keen on that ultimately ended up doing nothing was a card called Stunning Reversal. I love this card. It basically says if you would lose the game this turn, instead you draw 7 cards and your life total becomes 1. I thought it would be really cool to have this kind of big comeback moment potential card. But it ended up, I think, just being, we added a mana to it really late, and it ended up being, I think, just not that strong. But that was a card that I always hoped was better than, or hoped would be better than it actually turned out being.
Do you feel like you keep cards like that in mind when designing things in future sets, seeing if you can somehow create a niche little synergy or pick down the track?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like, okay, well, it didn't work this time, but what if we try this other tweaked version of it and maybe it'll hit this time? A lot of designers have a history of doing that, and sometimes say in safer ways than others. Some of them have turned out a little bit too strong, as sometimes you finally crack the effect and it's way too powerful. But I'm sure it will not be the last time you see some weird, if you would lose the game card from me.
I mean, I hope I see more. To be honest with you, I absolutely adore those cards. But to be honest, you mentioning that just slightly tweaked versions, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Eaten by Piranhas versus Amphibian Downpour. I mean, Eaten by Piranhas, Enchantment Flash, send it in, essentially lock someone out of their commander, which is how I tend to use it. Amphibian Downpour, same thing for 1 extra mana. What is it? It has Storm. Do you feel like just the further Magic is going, do you feel like there's going to be more callbacks to what is I've essentially described as a callback, Amphibian Downpour being a better version for the most part of those Eaten by Piranhas esque cards, you know?
I think as Magic goes along, we will just keep finding ways to reference ourselves, right? Because one of the great advantages Magic has in trading card games is so many years of history, right? 30 plus years of history. And it's like a living, breathing game where the game is referencing itself sometimes, and you do see these nods to the past come in. We have to be careful about that because it's really easy to do that too much, and then you end up with something that's imperceptible to the newer player. So we want to avoid that. Um, but when it works out, it's great. So you will see plenty of references um, in the future. I'm sure we have to be careful where we deploy them. In the case of the 2 cards you described, kind of just the archetype of the aura that takes away abilities in blue is pretty like all over the place now, and you'll see a lot of riffs on the same category of card because ultimately, every set wants something like that, or most sets want something like that. So, all right, what is this set's version of that effect? And well, you got to find the twist or the mechanic or whatever to put on it. And so that kind of thing you'll see repeated over and over again too.
Heck yeah. Now, as we kind of draw closer to the end of this interview today, thank you so much, by the way. I've got one more question for you, and it's a bit of a big one. So, how has your direct contact and interaction with the community shaped the way that you design products and experiences? You've mentioned Commander cards have been influenced by the community in your recent interview with Cassius Marsh, for example. I remember, so listening to that interview, you mentioned that you have interacted with the community. Was that in the form of like Q&As? Was that in the form of, something like this? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the Magic community is pretty integral to my work. Love listening to the community and taking in feedback and using that to craft our game. And I think Magic is a rare game where we do that a lot. Like I am on the Magic Reddit and Magic social media all the time, reading stuff and interacting with folks. I think I think like my most visited page is Scryfall, and my second most visited page is Magic subreddit. If you look at my Google, so I'm always reading to see what happens. Um, and it's a lot of discourse with players, talking there, talking to folks at Magic Cons, going to stores around the world, and just being someone that players feel like they can reach out to and talk to and leave their opinions on about. And then I can internalize that and take that back. And it takes a long time for us to turn the ship because we do work so far in advance. So I want to be able to get that feedback and implement it as soon as we can, so that they'll see the reaction time. Sort of like when you go to the doctor and like they hit your knee with something, and then it takes a while for like your knee to come up, right? It's like that, but we're like the slowest knee of all time. So the sooner I can get the feedback and implement it, the better. But plenty of card designs have been made because people suggested, hey, could this color do this? Or hey, I feel like this color is lacking this ability, or what have you. So listen to the community and what they're looking for directly impacts design, and I always love hearing what people have to say. So if you're out there listening and you've got thoughts, don't send me card ideas. I can't look at those. But if you have things you want to see in Magic, worlds you want to go to, shapes of cards you'd like to see more of, feel free to hit me up on social media or anywhere else you can find me.
After this, I will let you know. I'm going to send you a message saying Cyclonic Rift 2. What it
One's
does,
enough.
I
I
don't
think one's
know.
enough.
What was that, sorry?
I think one's enough. I think one's enough.
I couldn't agree more. Having 3 Cyclonic Rifts bounce my entire board 3 times in a game made me not want to play for a month. Now, with that said, thank you so much. We are approaching the end of our interview today. I just want to thank you so much, Gavin, for joining us today. It is genuinely an honor that you're here. With that said, do you have any message to our convention goers just before you head off?
Yeah, I'll just say that Australian Magic is awesome. I always love coming down under and playing with everyone down there. The community's been incredible. I've been to all kinds of events down there over the past few years, and I hope to come back soon. And I've never been down to Tasmania, and I really want to go. So hopefully, sometime in the not too distant future, I'll be down there playing with you, and I look forward to seeing you all then.
Heck yeah. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. And for all of you at the convention currently, we have some wonderful live panels coming up soon. And I just hope you have a great day. Make sure to visit the market area. Have a great day, guys.